Welcome to the Second Line Show. I'm Nola Nash. Let's let the good times roll. Welcome to the Second Line Show. Once again, I am your host, Nola Nash. I am in a Louisiana state of mind. Of course, last week there was no show because I was in New Orleans. So Nola went to Nola last week and had a real good time, even though it was kind of chilly and windy, but we did have some gorgeous days when we were down there. I'm sure some of the stories from the trip will filter into various conversations. I don't know, a ghost tour, vampire tour, ate lots of good food that we will talk about later. So we had a great time, but I'm glad to be back live with you guys on the Second Line Show. So what I want to remind you guys is to go ahead and be dropping those comments down into the comment sections wherever you are watching us live. And we are going to get to those as we can. So if we get to your comment, we will try to answer it live on the air. If we don't get to it, never fear. We're going to keep an eye on those comments and go back to them after the fact. And if you're watching us in a replay, go ahead and put those comments in anyway. They send me an alert and I go back and see what's going on in those comments even after the show has gone live. So I'm excited to bring you some of my favorite people tonight. We have got some awesome guests. I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you. One of which is my very dear friend, Laura Cayouette, that I have been friends with for years online. We've never really sat down and had a conversation like this. So I'm super excited to finally have Laura on this show. And we've got some great folks. Koris is not with us tonight. She's had an injury, so we're going to send our positive thoughts out to Carol. Carol, we love you. We're sorry you can't join us tonight, and we hope that you're getting a chance to watch the show. So we will send our very best to Carol, and I'm sure she'll be back on a future show. She's been a guest on the show before, and she was a lot of fun. And she has sent her dear friend Tracey Broussard to us, so we're so glad Carol sent you our way as well. So RJ, whenever we do introductions, we always go pretty much style. So you get to start, my friend, as we go around the circle here.
All right, good. Well, I lived for 30 years in New Orleans. That's my claim to a New Orleans connection. But I grew up in Natchez. What's that?
Good enough for me. That's a good connection. 30 years. Yeah. Go, you got more than me.
I had cousins in the Crescent City, and when we were little kids, we would go down for Mardi Gras, of course, and dress up and try to get stuff, and which we did. And I was telling Noah, years ago, I had collected this bowl full of trinkets and stuff, throws, and I melted it all down into one ugly ashtray. I don't even know what I did with that ashtray, but it wasn't too good looking. But anyway, I grew up in Natchez. I have South Mississippi, Louisiana roots, and I write currently a mystery series, a cozy mystery series called The Bridge to Death mystery series. I have a young, ambitious amateur female sleuth. She has red hair, a lot of ambition, and she has a savant gift for solving puzzles where even the police department can't. Called The Bridge to Death mystery series. The third one was released in February, Cold Reading Murder. And actually, even though that's what I'm doing now, my very first novel was inspired by the Crescent City. And it was published in 1993 by a small press. It's called God of the Door, and it was about an evil, get this, evil Mardi Gras crew. I had a lot of
fun. Oh, yes. Yes.
So that's who I am.
I love it. Evil Mardi Gras crew.
And we managed to do that with nobody making a joke about Nyx. So
I'm telling you what, this is going to be fun tonight, y'all. I'm so excited about
it. So now we got Samantha, right?
Yes, now we got to see. Look, RJ's got the Brady Bunch thing going. All right, there you go. Samantha, you're on deck, my dear.
All right. I live in New Orleans. I have lived here for over 20 years, but I did grow up in California. And I came here for Mardi Gras after I graduated from college, and I'm still here. So
I love it.
Been here ever since. I live in the French Quarter. I've always lived in the French Quarter. And although I've, excuse me, never actually written a story that takes place in the French Quarter, I write psychological thrillers. My debut is My Lovely Wife. This came out in 2019 and was a bestseller. And then in 2020, He Started It came out. And as you can see, women with weapons.
Like it. Yes, ma'am.
All right. And then my next book comes out in July, but they are psychological thrillers. As of yet, I have not set one in New Orleans. And I'm sure we'll talk about writing and New Orleans and that kind of thing. Although He Started It has a road trip across the country. And one of the characters in that book went to Tulane and lives in New Orleans. So that's as close as I've gotten so far. So we'll see.
I love the cover of My Lovely Wife with reflection, and then I love it. That is super cool. I love those.
Note, you've gone from a knife to a shovel. Do the weapons keep getting larger?
No, actually, in the next one, the third one, there's no weapon at all. So it's mysterious what happens. So
nice.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened on the first two, but there you go.
I love it. That's awesome. I love the covers with women with the weapon in their hand. I mean, there is something about that. You're like, yep, it's gonna be good. All those brave, strong women going after it. Love it. Tracey, we're gonna come on down the Brady Bunch Square to you. Tell us about yourself, my dear.
Hey guys, I grew up in New Orleans. I left home at 18 and spent some years in New York, and then the rest of the time I've lived in Florida. But I pretty much divide my time between here and New Orleans because I still have close family there. I started writing actually because as a karate practitioner, our grandmaster wanted to do some books for the students. So my first book that was an anthology is this one. It's called 365 Days of the Warrior. And it was kind of cool because we had about 60 different people contributing, and they were all students and different teachers of karate, and have to do with living the life of a warrior with and without weapons. And then I also did this book, Irrepressible Appetites, which actually Carol Koris, it's looking shiny in the light. But there we go.
Good, though. I like the cover.
Thank you. That's my daughter on the cover.
How is it?
Yeah, so we that one is an anthology of food-related stories and poems, and it also has about 60 contributors. And so for a while there, I was just working on the anthologies, and then I did food writing for the Sun Sentinel in South Florida. And when the pandemic started, I decided to start a blog. So I blog at thebigeasycook.com, and it's kind of an online journal, and it just chronicles my food obsessions with recipes. So.
And you've got some little helpers with you on that blog a lot too, don't you?
I do. My grandchildren, Remy and Rory, they are avid cooks. They want to be in the kitchen all the time.
That is incredible. I love that. And they're so cute. If you go to her Facebook page, the little kids in the kitchen, there is nothing better than little kids cooking. And I never had a big enough kitchen where I felt like I could get my kids in there with me and not go absolutely insane. So I'm always impressed with people who let their kids just kind of go free in the kitchen and learn how to cook. That's how I learned how to cook. My kids are a little late on the uptake on that one because I was not the same parent and grandparent that my mother and my grandparents were. So I applaud that, letting those kids in there, learning young, and they're adorable doing it. They're absolutely precious. Amanda, we're going to come on over to you, my dear. Your turn.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I grew up in Colorado, actually, and now I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. So I've never lived in Louisiana. However, 2 of my 3 novels are set there. My first book, The Undertaker's Assistant, is set in New Orleans. My next book that comes out this summer, The Second Life of Muriel West, takes place at Carville. And when I first started writing The Undertaker's Assistant, I had never even been to New Orleans, and I fell in love with it through the history, learning about the city. And by the time I stepped off the plane to do a little bit more research, it was like coming home. So I'm like a lover of Louisiana and in particular New Orleans from afar.
Now, I have not had a chance to read The Undertaker's Assistant, but it is on my list. And Annie McDonald has told me so much about that book. She raves about The Undertaker's Assistant. So very cool story, guys. definitely check that out. It is a fascinating setting and a fascinating premise for the book. I love it. And my dear friend Laura, I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight. I'm looking forward to that. This is awesome. Tell us a little bit about, I know about who you are, but tell them.
Well, so my family is from Louisiana for like hundreds of years, but I did not grow up here. My father and mother met at LSU and moved for my dad's job before I was born. So I was born where my dad's job was in DC, and I grew up there and Japan, and so Maryland, Japan, DC, Baltimore, all those areas, and then but every time we would come home for the holidays, both my parents' families are here, so we came here, and then I moved to I went to grad school in Alabama in Mobile, and then I moved to New York and was there for the end of the go-go 80s and the beginning of the 90s. So it was when New York was like the OK Corral. It was kind of crazy out there. And then I moved from that frying pan into the fire of LA, the other LA, Los Angeles, and lived there for 18 years because I make my living as an actor. And I guess most people know me from Django Unchained, but yes, I've been acting for 25 years. And I have a number of books, but my mystery series is set here in New Orleans, where I've lived since 2009. I got here right when the Saints were headed toward the Super Bowl, so it was pretty much like
excellent timing.
Yeah, and I don't know if people know this, but we were having Mardi Gras when the Super Bowl happened, so we were 1 week into Mardi Gras and we're like, have to interrupt this party to bring on an even bigger party. And now resuming our previous party, it was huge. So it was the most amazing time to move here. And I wanted to capture that. It was I knew that everything about it was one of those you had to be here things, but I thought, even if you can't capture a you had to be here thing, aren't you supposed to try?
Absolutely.
So I tried. And so my first book, my first of the series of mystery books was, based a little bit on my story. It's a actor who comes here and she's fresh off the red carpet to go to a family funeral and ends up embroiled in a mystery. And I don't write murders, only mysteries. So mine are sort of more adult Nancy Drew books, but these are they. So
love the covers. I love the colors and the.
Thank you. I think they're fun. They each have a different picture on them, and they each, have their own little theme. But and they each have their own thickness. This is the first one. And this is the last one. So.
I don't know how it goes.
But yeah, they're all set here in New Orleans, and because of Charlotte's job, the Charlotte Reed Mysteries, because of Charlotte's job, you get to go behind the scenes of everything from auditions, commercials, a big movie, smaller movies, all the different things, all the different elements of an actor's career. And then you're also behind the scenes of New Orleans and its culture, because when she first arrives, she's just somebody whose family's here. But very quickly within the series, she becomes part of the local culture. And in particular, when she joins the Pussyfooters dance team, dancing in the parades. So, yeah.
I always like to say that Laura is one of the people that lives New Orleans life best. Like the stuff that she does, it's like, somebody who didn't grow up there, somebody who's just kind of come and gone from the city for a while. You immerse yourself so much in all of the fun things that there are to do in this city. And kind of like Charlotte did, it was kind of like that easing in and going, this is awesome. I'm going to do everything. I love the pictures that you post, everything from going to the Pelicans games to dancing in the parades as a pussyfooter, and all of the things that you do to snowballs in the cold. It's like, girl, you're a better woman than me. I am down here in the city and I am not getting a snowball. I'm getting my cafe au lait.
We planned that weeks in advance. That was Raina, who's also in that photo, works at the Garden District Bookshop. And I haven't been able to stop into the bookshop as much as you normally would. And that's my neighborhood bookshop. And they also carry all my books. And so Raina and I had planned on that snowball for weeks, and the weather just took a turn.
I did not pack right. It was terrible.
Showed up in scarves, coats, hats, everything to get our
Hold your
frozen
snowball.
treats.
You had your snowball. You had your condensed milk on it. I was like,
not
you know
gonna miss
what?
it. I was
Die
not
hard.
gonna miss
She's
it.
getting it. She's done it right. She's got the condensed milk on the snowball, and
Yeah.
she's bundled up. But yeah, I was the tourist down there that day because I had to go down into the the touristy shops and get the New Orleans French Quarter sweatshirt because I did not pack right. It's like, here I am. I'm down here all the time, and I'm in my sweatshirt. It says New Orleans French
Freezing.
Quarter.
It was just
It was
freezing.
so cold. And that day that it was so cold, we were going on an airboat tour in the swamp. We went to Jean Lafitte Preserve. We were on an airboat. They found the tiny little alligator because all the other alligators were hiding from the cold. We're like, we're out here in the freezing cold. The gators have the right idea.
Yes.
Why are we here? It's like, this is ridiculous. And the airboat driver, he takes that little gator and, passes it around. And just me and one teenage guy were the only people in the boat that will actually hold this thing. I think they're cute when they're tiny. I don't want anything to do with them when they're big. I think they're cute when they're little. So I'm holding this little guy, and then the airboat driver, he takes him and he puts him in this box in the back of the boat. I said, what are you going to do with him? And he said, well, I'm keeping him for the next tour because I don't know if we're going to see any more. And somebody's got to have a gator. I was like, good plan. Okay. But they were nowhere to be found. And he said that the day before, when it was that gorgeous day, there were like 40 or 50 of them out sunning themselves. Like you couldn't, go anywhere without a gator. I was like, boy, did we pick the wrong day to be on an airboat tour? And then we do the ghost and vampire tour. We're freezing. We're buying hand warmers from the tour guide people to stick in our pockets. We're chugging Cafe LA trying to make it so that we're not absolutely dying. And I'm going, what is this weather? It's never like this when I go down. I go the same time twice a year. I always go my fall break and I go my spring break. So I'm there in October and I'm there in March. And it's like the perfect weather, both of those months. It's like the best time to go to the city because it's always glorious, except for this time. One glorious day. And we spent it at Destrehan. So I was like, I wasn't even in the city. But it was fantastic. But as you guys know, those of you out there in Facebook land, you know that I write the Crescent City series. So I have Crescent City Moon and Crescent City Sin. So mine focus more on the kind of darker underbelly of magic and voodoo and mystery and murder in New Orleans. So I do write the mysteries with the murder. Mine have lots of, well, depending on who you are. I mean, I've had a lot of people tell me that they're really scary. When I don't know what it says about me that when I wrote them, I didn't think they were scary. I thought they were kind of creepy. But I wasn't like, leave the lights on. And people are like, this book scared me. I could not go to sleep. I'm like, something must be wrong with me because I didn't think they were that scary. But I'm sorry, y'all, if I scared y'all. But I do love that side of things, and I'm fascinated by that side of things. One of my very best friends in New Orleans happens to be a psychic medium. She reads tarot in the quarter. She loves to go ghost hunting and go to haunted things with me. We have us a real good time. So you meet some interesting people down in New Orleans, and that's one of my favorite things about the city too, is that it's, everything is a go there. Like it doesn't matter who you are, what you like to do, where you are politically, spiritually, culturally. It's just like, come on, y'all. I mean, it's kind of goes to that whole gumbo culture. We always talk about the gumbo culture in Louisiana is you put everything in a pot, you cook it all together, the flavors meld, and it comes out a different thing than some of the ingredients. And that is my favorite analogy of South Louisiana because I think it's so true. I mean,
although I always say that the one reason that we're very similar to gumbo is because each of the ingredients does retain its own original flavor.
It does. Yeah. I mean, if you take a bite of it, you will get the individual flavors, but it comes out like its own thing. I guess
it's totally something.
Yeah. It's like you take all those some of the ingredients and it's something completely different from what you would imagine that it's going to be. If you've never had a gumbo before.
I had a friend who came here. She's my best friend since high school, and she lives in LA. And she came here, and when she was coming back, she goes, where do we get that spicy soup again? Spicy soup. And I'm trying to think, what spicy soup did I feed her? And then I realized she meant gumbo because she knew it wasn't regular soup, but she didn't know
That's
it isn't soup at all.
Exactly. And it's not even like a stew.
Not
It's
stew.
not a, like, what is it? I
It's
don't
gumbo.
know. It's gumbo. That's really what it is. And it's funny to me because I don't think of it as spicy. I think, and people misconstrue Louisiana food. They
Absolutely.
think it's absolutely, you know, spicy stuff. Now you can get some really spicy things if you want it, but that's not really it. And I think a lot of people who really understand Louisiana kind of get it, that it's all about the flavor, not the heat. The heat is sort of an added bonus, but
Well, spicy
the great
doesn't
thing
have to
about
be
it, no, it doesn't. It's got lots and lots of layers of flavor that are built into it, and it warms you from the inside out, but it's not going to necessarily light you on fire, make your nose run kind of, you know, sign a waiver kind of heat. It's not like that, you know. It's really, it's the layers of flavor. And I love that the food and the culture are so reflective of each other. And, you know, the culture brings in all of the ingredients to the food. The people bring so much of the color to the city, to just all of South Louisiana. And I think that's why the food is so important to everybody, because it is truly elements of so many different people and cultures that have come together to create something really unique and special. I mean, was it Mark Twain? You know, somebody who knows this, correct me. Was it Mark Twain who said that if going to New Orleans is like going to Europe without ever leaving the country? I think that was Mark Twain who said that. And I've always described it that way. South Louisiana is its own country. I mean, it has its own style of architecture. It has its own cuisine. It has its own language. It has its own culture. And, you know, RJ, you know this because you've lived in various parts of New Orleans, to kind of all over the city. Even going to the suburbs, it's different than going, you know, into the parts. Each part of the city is different. I mean, you can go to the Garden District. It's very different than going into the CBD, going into the French Quarter, going to Metairie, going to Kenner. You go different places, different pockets, and you're going to get a whole different feeling. It's like all these little other little cities within the bigger place. It's unlike anywhere else. And I think that's what makes it a great setting for books too. I mean, for writers that have fallen in love with the city, everybody from Tennessee Williams, Faulkner, to those of us who are sitting here that have some, you know, written connection to the city. None of our books, nothing that we have written about the city or using the city or even somebody passing through the city are the same. And that is something that is truly remarkable. You kind of have this picture of New York. You know, we kind of have that idea of New York, and it seems to play out very similarly in a lot of books, where New Orleans, because everybody is going to experience New Orleans a little differently, depending on how they came there and what they're there for, or where in New Orleans they are. I feel like that each of the books that uses New Orleans has a very different flavor to it, a very different style to it that can't necessarily be said about every other large city. What do you guys feel like you're bringing from the city into what you do?
Oh, RJ is muted.
You're muted, RJ. I have a t-shirt for my students that says you're on mute. I just kind of like stand up.
Am I now? I'm okay.
No,
now?
you're good now. You're good now.
Okay. No, what I wanted to say was this really this particular entry, the latest entry, Cold Reading Murder. It's interesting, Nola, because it is about a psychic reader who comes to Rosalie, the little town that I invented, which actually is Natchez on the Mississippi. And no one knows if she's the real thing or not. But, and she ends up getting murdered, by the way. So, you know, something she said in a cold reading cut too close to the bone. But what I wanted to tell you was, during my many years that I lived in New Orleans, I was in between jobs one summer. And believe it or not, I got a job for a New York company delivering singing telegrams all over New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
In a
Oh, you froze, RJ. We want to hear the story. Now we're all like,
Oh, that's doing?
What was he doing? RJ.
RJ.
I know. Where's our
Okay, well, I have a quick question beforehand. Oh, there you
no, he's back. Okay, we heard you say you were delivering singing telegrams in a, and you froze. So tell us first.
Yeah. Okay. What I was saying was, while I was doing this, I was thinking, because at that time I was unpublished, but still trying to get published. I was saying, I need to create a character in a mystery novel who gets involved in something delivering singing telegrams, which is what happens in cold reading murder. I have a character.
Yes.
I have a character who just graduated in theater arts from LSU, who goes up to Rosalie, and far from getting regional theater, he gets a job for a party company delivering singing telegrams. And that's where he gets in trouble. He's the most interesting character, I think, in this book. His name is Milton Baghdad, and I got his name from an exit on the interstate outside of Pensacola. There's an exit. It says Milton Baghdad. And writers
I do that sometimes. Is that a writer thing? Like I'm driving down the road and I'm going, that would make a good name. Like I need to remember that. And I always think I'm going to remember that, and then I don't. I had to drive back from Shreveport to Nashville because the Dallas airport froze over, and I was dropping my daughter off at college, and I was supposed to fly back, and I couldn't. So I drove, and I'm sitting there entertaining myself on an 8-9 hour drive back, looking at exit signs, doing the same thing. Like, I should write that down, but I was driving. I couldn't write it down. I'm like, great. So there's some along, between Shreveport and like Little Rock that are great. And I don't know.
Absolutely fantastic. Just remember that. All of you remember that. I have one other tale to tell on myself. Then I'll be quiet about the singing telegrams. One of the best deliveries I had was to a professor at Tulane, uptown. And they were a young couple, and they liked me so much, they said, well, stick around and have some tequila shots with us. And I did. And they were shots. And I had so many of those babies that when it came time for me to finally leave, I could not move. I could not get off their couch. So I said, would it be okay if I slept on your couch? Which is what I did that night. So
that's so funny.
Only in New Orleans could you do something like that. I think.
I was about to say, that doesn't happen very often in most places. You go to a professor's house, deliver a singing telegram, and then do tequila shots till you have to spend the night.
Get drunk on tequila shots so you can't move.
That is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Now, you're talking about singing telegrams, and I'm going, why doesn't the mob use people like singing telegram people, or like all these covert, like underground operations? Because, these people are dressed weird. They go knock on strange people's doors. Nobody's going to question if they're singing. What else can they be delivering or doing when they're doing these singing telegrams?
My novel.
Oh, sorry. I haven't read it.
Well,
then I need to read it now.
I have a perfect lead character for y'all. Y'all know who's doing that is Tracey Minks, the burlesque dancer.
I love Tracey Minks. She is so fun. Her quarantine videos with her dog, like in the front yard, are hysterical.
Too good. She gets me through. She gets me through all this.
Oh my God. She's a riot. And for somebody who is as gorgeous as she is, to take herself so not seriously to go do these crazy, hilarious things, she's the best. I love
her Tub Time interviews, all of it. It's all great.
And guys out there, Facebook world, go check out Tracey Minks. She's she's such entertainment. I love her. She's so funny and she's beautiful and yet hilarious. I love people like that just don't take themselves seriously. They could absolutely be very full of themselves and then don't.
Kermit Ruffins has also, during the COVID, he's been doing singing, horn playing telegrams.
Yes, the horn playing telegrams. There are fun people who are really making the most of this. And, there's so much talent in that city. And I think it's been fun to see how creative these people have gotten in a situation that was at first horrifying for the city of New Orleans. I mean, that was one of the saddest things for me to see, is the city being shut down by a virus that it was just merciless to the city of New Orleans. And then to see how people were so determined to keep art alive, to keep the culture alive. Even the boarded up buildings became murals. It was absolutely just so New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans is an adjective as well as a noun, I feel like. I mean, I use it interchangeably. It was such a cool thing to see them do that. And some of the artwork on those portraits, like you could take that and frame it somewhere, and it's just going to get pulled off when the building opens up,
The house floats were incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved watching those. Now, you got to go down there and dance for the drive-by parade, right?
I did. I danced at Floats in the Oaks, which was a drive-through parade where we're all standing still and the cars just drive by, and that's how the parade worked. And we were really the only humans. It was very strange because the floats were empty. And I was there opening night, and there was no other. I felt the weight of that we were actually the only people parading, the only human beings parading in the entire city. It was like a dozen of us.
Yeah.
And there was maybe 20 of us, pussyfooters. And I knew that we were the only people dancing in the entire city that night. And I just felt the weight of that. But it was also incredible. We got to see a bunch of children in cars packed in and hanging out the windows and all that. But also, I hadn't seen an 80-year-old in person in a year. And there were all these 80-year-olds driving by, like caravans of 80-year-olds. It was like, wow, look at all the wisdom and
all the wisdom,
snicketiness and all the things. I haven't seen any of this in a year. So it was great. It was sad, but it was great.
The creativity of the floats was stunning. And to know that they were so into that holiday, they were not going to let it go down without a fight. And if you can't fight, you can't fight the virus, you can't fight what's going on, you do it your own way. And that's so much of what the city has always done. They're going to claw their way back up into expressing themselves in their culture the ways that they can. And the house floats were such a great idea. I don't know who started it, where it started. Do you?
Yeah.
Tell me, because that was a question my daughter asked me, and I was like, you know what? I don't know, but I'm glad they did it.
Well, in my blog, I write a blog, LA to Nola, and I covered the house floats, and I did different neighborhoods every day. And so at some point, I went into Algiers Point, which is where the founder lives. The founder of.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Yardi Gras was already an idea, but this is the woman who created the house floats idea and made it international. There were expats all over the world, Australia, Abu Dhabi, all over the world who were decorating their homes.
That is so awesome. I need to go back and read your articles. Look at your pictures. But
there's a zillion
in the middle of something. I love the pictures.
Photos.
So many pictures. And then I follow on Facebook David Nola Photography, and he does beautiful, beautiful photography of the city. And he would photograph. Yeah, he did so many gorgeous shots of it. And it was just so cool to see that city come to life in that way. And even though the streets were deserted, it was so powerful to see the people embracing what they could do. And it just says a lot about the people of that city. How many times have they been knocked down and scrambled back to the top better than before with new ideas, new things, new ways of doing things, and yet holding tight to the traditions that they love so much and just finding a way to make those traditions happen. That says a lot for the people down there. When we think about New Orleans as parties, as, the drunk people on Bourbon Street, and that is so far from the spirit of the city itself. To me, one of the greatest things that I saw when I was down there, and I've got video of it and I need to post it. We were walking around in Audubon Park, and there was a jazz band playing in the park. And just under the oaks, sweeping live oaks, Spanish moss dripping all around them, people gathering, all shapes, sizes, colors, ages, and they're dancing together, strangers who would go up to each other and go, I've been vaccinated. Will you dance with me? And it's like, that is so cool. And they're just dancing in the sidewalk, and little kids are stopping to listen to the band. And that, to me, that's New Orleans. That's the spirit of it. It's this beautiful setting and these amazing people. I love it. Amanda?
I think that's one of the reasons I feel such a kinship with New Orleans, is because living in Las Vegas, I feel almost like a sister city to New Orleans, that everyone thinks of Las Vegas and they think of the Las Vegas Strip and they think of the gambling and the drinking and the partying. But the city is so much more than that. And also, I think, was gutted, by the pandemic. My husband and I went, on the Strip when it was completely closed down, and it was so eerie to see it deserted. But then at night you could drive by on the highway, which was almost deserted too, but the casinos and the hotels had lit up lights just some of the rooms, like one or maybe like a dozen, to form a heart or to form a message that would say, Vegas strong, or, we'll get through this, like these really inspiring messages. And I think like New Orleans in that, we're going to come back stronger.
Mm-hmm. I interviewed an author, and she was really cool. She talked about a time that her and her friend were in Las Vegas. She went to go visit the friend, but it was during the lockdown and everything. They went bike riding on the Vegas Strip.
It became a
alone. It was like no cars, no people. They just went bike riding. They're like, we're just bike riding through the drop-off loop at the Venetian. It's like that is crazy. And I've kind of related in a way because I had gone to New Orleans right before Hurricane Delta hit in October. That was my trip, before the cold trip in March. I went literally days before Delta went. Everybody else is leaving the state. I'm going in because that's what I do. I wrote out Hurricane Andrew. I'm like, bring it. It's just wind and rain. I can do this, So, Louisiana girl at heart. I'm feeling this feeling, whatever. And so I go into the city. And I was walking around, and I've got pictures of a deserted French Quarter, because between COVID and then the shutdown and Delta coming in and a Wednesday, like it was the middle of the week, there was nobody. I was sitting in front of St. Louis Cathedral in 30-mile-an-hour winds, eating some watermelon I got at Rouse's because half the restaurants were closed, just sitting there all by myself in front of the cathedral eating watermelon, because that was my day. There was nothing else going on. So when you go to these cities that are so iconic and they're shut down, it is such a different feeling. But at the same time, that it's going to bubble back to life. And by Saturday, after Delta missed us just a little bit, it was kind of back to semi-normal, I guess, back to COVID normal, I suppose. But, whatever that is these days. So that was a very different feeling. Now, Samantha, you live in the Quarter, and Laura, you live Garden District, right? But don't you have a place in the Quarter?
Both, yeah.
Yeah, you've got a place in the Quarter too. So what's it like being in the Quarter now versus kind of before all of this hit? People imagine life in the Quarter as being kind of wild and untamed.
The first part of lockdown, when we were on quarantine starting last March, it was about probably 6 weeks. It was the scariest I've ever seen the French Quarter in terms of just nobody. And like you could walk down a major street, Royal Street, and not see a single human being.
Except
the drugstores were closed down. The Walgreens was closed down. The CVS was closed down. Everything was boarded up. The only store around was Rouse's, and thank God they stayed open. And
bless their hearts.
It was just
that watermelon real bad.
It was just amazing. Everybody just vanished, literally vanished. They were gone. And then after about 5 or 6 weeks, that's when like some construction work started and a few things started to open up, and then it slowly became a few more people. But the first month was just, and we were boarded up like it was a hurricane was coming, except I'm sure they were afraid of looters, and that's why they did it. And so all the stores boarded up, and then it became like half boarded up, half not. And then there were more people around it. But ever since then, up until now, up until spring break hit, it's been fantastic because the Quarter's empty and we can enjoy it. And there's nobody here. There's plenty of parking. There's no crowd.
Yeah, and you get to see each other, your neighbors.
Absolutely fantastic.
Well, even the people you know.
And then spring break just hit about a week ago, and it's like COVID never happened. It's the craziest,
was really
thing
weird.
I've ever seen. And
when I was down there,
madness.
Yeah, I was there, and it was spring break week when I was there, and I was stunned because I told my mom and my daughter, I said, "No, when we go down there, it's going to feel really weird because it is not the New Orleans you guys came to 2 years ago when we went down here, and I've been down a couple of times since." And then I go down there, and I'm like, "What the heck? This is almost back to normal. What is the deal here?"
And our bar, we're not even open fully. Our bar's still closed at 11.
Yeah.
And so what is everybody doing here? Go to Florida. What are you doing here?
Tracy's like, don't send them here. Don't send them here.
Well, no, part of that's because Texas and Mississippi both not only opened up, but they opened up with no restrictions, no masks, no anything. And that's our left and right side. People were passing around that meme of Sigourney Weaver.
The winds.
Because, you know,
I saw fans. Did you see the meme with the map? And it's the fans blowing back in Texas and Mississippi. That was funny.
Spring break is actually about a month. I'm sure Tracey knows that as well, living in Florida. You know, it's about a month. And so it'll keep going until Easter. And so this weekend will also be crazy.
Oh, it's not just the weekend. It's during the week because they're here all week long. It's every day, all day. And it's the weekends.
So, yeah. But yes, you're right.
It was really
that's what it's been like in the French Quarter. So I guess we're all back to normal now. I guess the pandemic's over.
Samantha, to me, the thing that was the most shocking, because actually down where I live, you know, on the edge of the quarter. So there's traffic that goes by. So that was one thing, is there was no cars. But the other thing was, like you were saying, there was no people. But because there were no people, I met every mentally ill person in our city. And I met my neighbors. You know, the French Quarter, it's hard to tell who lives there, because there are people who come and go. And there are a lot of Airbnbs that are illegally operating that now have been exposed and now no longer are going to be there. But, you know, when COVID first hit, it was hard to tell who lived there and who didn't. And you couldn't really find your neighbors unless you were talking about your own block. You know what I mean? Like you knew your own block, you knew your own little area, but you didn't know people like 5 streets away.
Right.
And now I've gotten to meet neighbors all throughout the quarter because we would go walking every day and people were out on their stoops, you know.
That's what I loved about my trip in October. Was really, and I was there by myself. I love to travel by myself. I do things differently when I travel by myself than when I have other people. We did touristy things this last trip because I was with my mom, I was with my daughter. There were things they wanted to do that were not really things I would do on my own. But when I was there in October, I loved being able to just walk the neighborhood. So get out of the central part of the quarter and those beautiful side streets. As you get further towards Esplanade and you're getting more on that side, there are some gorgeous, gorgeous houses down there that are so hidden from what you would normally do as a tourist. And because it was such a beautiful time of year, it was deserted of tourists. Everybody was out walking, and it was such a neat thing. I mean, I was a tourist walking there. Technically, I don't live there, but the locals were out walking their dogs, waving at each other across the street. And I'm going, this is not the quarter people know. It is still technically the quarter. I am still walking down Bourbon, but this is not the Bourbon anybody would think of. I mean, it was, you know, getting past Lafitte's blacksmith shop, heading the other direction, away from the bars. What a beautiful part of the quarter.
Well, that's the residential section. And
I love it.
Gorgeous. And it's quieter. Not quiet. That's not a thing in the quarter, but it's quieter, although it was this year. But yeah, it's a beautiful part of the French Quarter. And I think people don't realize, certainly, I know people don't realize that not only is New Orleans a small population city, you know, when you walk around and you see 1 million people every day, those aren't our people. 2/3 of them have either commuted in or are visiting. And so there are really only about 365,000 people living in New Orleans proper, and less than 4,000 of us live in the French Quarter. And so that's, you know, not your normal city, not your normal historic district. But for me, Samantha, I don't know if you had this effect, but for me, the biggest change in the French Quarter was, and I didn't enjoy this at all. It haunted me. And I'm glad it's changing. I didn't know how to handle that there was no music.
Quiet.
It was aggressively quiet, though. It wasn't a pleasant quiet. It was aggressive.
I missed that in October. I missed that. It was different in this last trip. it was aggressively quiet. It was strange not having
there's
the
music,
music
now.
pouring
Now
out
it's
of
coming down.
Yeah.
Yeah, until
Yeah.
11.
Yeah,
Until
11. Until 11.
Which is kind of nice, I have to say.
Yeah.
I'm a night owl, but I'm a night owl because I write at night. I work at night. And so for me, it's been kind of nice that, you know, I'm glad the music is back, and I'm also kind of enjoying the sort of transition of it being over at midnight. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one of the first effects the quarter had that's like unintended consequences. You change one thing and it changes an entire system. Were the rats.
Yes.
Because
I heard
the
about
rats
that.
used to eat
Yeah.
the garbage from the restaurants, and they were all shut down. So all
They
of a
were
sudden,
wandering.
the rats were starving, and they all came out of the gutters looking for food because the restaurants were closed. So then the city put together a whole poisoning system of getting rid of them, but no one, it wasn't, the city just shut down. We didn't think, gosh, where are the rats going to eat? So apparently they all eat off the French Quarter garbage. So
I guess.
the,
But the interesting thing is, when
unintended
you're walking around
consequences.
there, you don't see them. I mean, I guess they're coming, into the
well,
alleys.
they're
without
under,
trash cans and
not when
things.
all
I mean,
the
they're-
people are around.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, they're not out. So it's when it's deserted like that, middle of the day, here come the rats. It's like, what the heck? I mean,
Well,
That's
wherever
like
you have
where's our
water,
city?
you can have rats, and we're all
yeah, I
water.
mean, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, New York has got rats everywhere. I mean,
Oh,
any
yeah.
major city is going to have that problem.
They're all
But
under your,
What
they're
an
under your
interesting
feet.
thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
Or
where
on
they
the
are.
wires above. Don't ever look up.
Yeah. I mean, they got to cross the street somewhere, and they don't want to walk in front of the drunk tourists either.
It could be a squirrel, but it could not. Well, there's no wires in the French Quarter, so
That's true, there's not.
But the rest of the city has wires, and you could be seeing a squirrel, or you could be seeing a not squirrel.
If it's not a fluffy tail, run. So, Tracey, what do you miss most about not being in New Orleans anymore?
Well, for sure, my family. But after my family, there is just too many things. I mean, I miss the food, the people, the architecture. There is just a feeling when you're there. It's just a different kind of lifestyle. It's easy. I mean, it's the big easy. So that sounds silly, but it's just easy. It's just an easier way of life. Can't really explain it, but it's just different.
People appreciate my curves there. I like that.
Oh yes.
They feed my curves there. And I gotta say, you don't have to work as hard. They compliment you. I was having breakfast at Camellia Grill, and waiter sets the food down, and he just says, "All right, baby, get to work." And I was like,
Well, you're
"Sir."
also allowed to grow older. You're also allowed to age here.
Yes.
You're allowed to have one leg or one eye or whatever you have one of, or that you should have two of normally, or I mean, you're allowed to be your own thing here, as you said earlier.
Yeah. And Tracey, you mentioned the architecture. Again, I grew up in Colorado and now in Las Vegas. There's nothing like the New Orleans architecture anywhere, but even just in terms of the diversity of your architecture, like we don't even have anything that you could call that here. And I love that. I was never an architect person, but I found myself wandering on all of those streets that like buffer Bourbon Street. Because I did one pass on Bourbon Street.
That's all you need. That's all anybody
Las
needs.
Vegas. I don't ever want to come back, but all the other stuff, it's so incredible. And I bought books about the architecture. It's such a unique part of the city, and it just, and it changes, and you can see the different eras in the architecture that's been preserved. That's something that we don't really have out here in the West, I would say. Not in this.
Walking.
Well, everything's young
walking
here.
to- Yes, everything is young out there in the West, and everything is. I mean, other than anything that however many buildings burnt down in the big fire, where they wouldn't ring the bells in the church. That was unfortunate. But everything that was built after that is essentially still there by and large. I mean, there are some buildings that have come down, the theaters and things that have been replaced by modern buildings. But even so, I have a book that was put together in 1930 something. It's a walking tour of New Orleans. And I could still walk down those streets. The names of the businesses have changed, but the description of the building is still there.
That's so
And it's
cool.
building after building after building. It's the addresses, and it's just, here's the history. And this book is almost 100 years old itself.
That's so cool.
And yet the buildings are there. It is one of the most staggering features of, the heart of the city is how authentic it still is. And the architecture being so unique. I mean, it's the French buildings with the Spanish trim, all the galleries and everything that were put on there. That's the Spanish lace that's up there. So you have this melding of culture even in the architecture itself that is so unique to anywhere else. And that's why you're not going to find it anywhere else. Because again, even in the architecture, it's the cultures coming together, making something better than it was with just one.
Although I am 100% convinced that if the people who built these buildings were alive today, saw that we were still living in these buildings, they would say we had lost our mind. What are you doing? This is the most energy inefficient, craziest thing ever. It was never supposed to be there for 150 years. Why are you still living in it?
Well, then they shouldn't have used cypress.
Right. That's right. I mean, why do they use the cypress? They put all of the stuff that they use fire. They used everything to keep it water resistant and fire retardant. After the fire, it was like, what do we put in here to keep this from igniting again? And they were genius with their building materials, and that's why it's still here. I mean, even just that the very materials it's made out of can absorb the water and the heat, and it'll flex with both of those things. And so that's why it doesn't go anywhere. It's like genius people putting the attic between the first and second floor instead of at the top. I mean, brilliance. Like, okay, we're not going to ruin everything in the New Orleans heat. They were genius builders. And yet at the same time, you're probably right. They're going to be going, really? You got all this modern stuff?
I know.
You're running electrical wires and internet wires through this.
You have fun in that old house. I'm going to go live in a smart house. So thank you.
That's one of those, Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court moments where they would just go, no. And I'll give you the modern conveniences here. I'm not coming back to this again. No. But it is interesting that they still stay.
Well, I do miss closets. I'll admit that. I miss closets.
Closets are handy, I mean, you're taxed on every door, right? So there's not closets. I mean, there are reasons why they're not there. That's why the big arm loans came in and all of that, because they couldn't tax a piece of furniture like they could tax a door. And I love the history of that. I mean, how interesting is that when you start going, why are there no closets? Well, let me tell you why. This is how they avoided paying too much taxes.
And yet, every single person here has to have some version of a closet just for costumes.
Exactly. Exactly. Or you've got some storage unit out by Mardi Gras World.
I just received this today. And
yes.
I have to find a home for this fabulous. I am ready for Easter.
It's your Pussyfooter's colors too.
It's Pussyfooter colors, yes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I just received this in the mail today from my brother and sister-in-law. And so it will be the new thing I have to find a home for, because it's too fabulous to just tuck away somewhere. I don't know where I'll put it.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a witch hat that I made many years ago, and I have a version of it that I've recreated. But I had like all the flowers and feathers and like all of this stuff on this witch hat. And it was this fabulous hat. And I couldn't find anywhere to keep it year after year. So I tacked it to a wall. Like it was part of the decoration. So maybe your hat just needs a place to display because it's really cool. I like it. Or a fabulous hat box. Like go find you one of those fabulous hat boxes. But yeah, what do you do without any closets? Where are you going to put your stuff?
I don't know, but I have like 5 different versions of my Pussyfooter uniform, and I have, and my husband loves Mardi Gras Day, so we have to construct these giant things every year for that, and so it's a deal. But I mean, what a wonderful problem to have.
Exactly. It's a great problem to have, and we could talk about all of this stuff all night long. But we're going to talk about the Rougarou. We're going to talk about things that are old and still linger. It's the legends of New Orleans and all of the history, the mystery. South Louisiana has got some of the best stories. And I think as writers, that's, I think, why so many writers feed on this place. because there's just stories around every corner. Every person you see walking down the street, they've got a tale to tell. You start to wonder about them. Like you said, all of the natives come out when COVID shuts it down, and you're just like, who are they? What's going on with those people? You can stand in a line getting beignets and start pondering other people's situations and what's going on with them and the weird costumes that walk by. You're going, are they tour guides or is that just how they dress? I don't know. And I love that part about the city and the stories. And the stories, some of them are very, very old. And some of them have a very fine line between fact and fiction. And sometimes the fiction has been proven to be fiction, but we still say it's fact. And so we are going to talk about a particular person, figure, animal, creature, I'll let you decide, that is still used to discipline Cajun children to this day, and bad Catholics. So we're going to talk about that. And that, of course, is the loup-garou. So we call, if you're, really letting that drawl hang out, it's the rougarou, which is, of course, a swamp werewolf. And you may be thinking, werewolves? Well, werewolves are kind of a European thing. Well, yeah, but where did all the people from Louisiana originally come from? Europe. You got it. We're going to bring a lot of our villainous creatures and legends with us. So according to Louisiana legend, the rougarou lives in the swamps and hunts Catholics who don't observe Lent and children who don't behave. Some might say they're one and the same. The legend has its roots in French werewolf lore, but is a popular disciplinary choice for Cajun parents in South Louisiana. And here's how they use it. So long before werewolves were boyfriend material, the rougarou frightened Catholics into observing Lent. At least every 6 years, the rougarou would frighten you, because if you didn't observe Lent for 7 years in a row, you could become a rougarou yourself. So don't piss off a Cajun with friends on the other side, or you could find yourself being cursed into being a rougarou, because they could keep you from celebrating Lent. So if you're not into howling at the moon and stalking Catholics and kids, then you probably need a way out. And so I can provide that for you. To get rid of the curse of being a rougarou, you need to get someone to cut you and draw blood. Sounds easy enough, because who doesn't want to attack a werewolf? Well, you don't go asking a friend to do it for you if you don't scare them away first, because the curse then transfers to the blood-drawing person who becomes the creature in your place. Well, all right, so we don't want to necessarily go cutting people and actually needing to reverse a curse. So how do we keep the rougarou at bay? Well, I got you covered on that too. Step one, of course, behave yourself. Just, do what you're supposed to do. Don't be a bad Cajun child and observe Lent. That would be good. But if you can't do that, then, you're going to find yourself prowling the swamp and 40 days of denial and fish on Fridays. Got to be better than that, right? Or here's a simpler thing for you. Put 13 pennies on your doorstep or windowsill. The rougarou isn't bright and can only count to 12. More than that, he gets confused and has to start all over. Or you can use a colander. So he has to keep counting holes and going round and round and round and round and round and round the colander, so he doesn't know where he started and can only count to 12 anyway. There's more holes than that. So apparently a rougarou can't resist counting and will continue to count until he figures out that he can't count past 12. Now, if scary rougarous are not your thing, and of course we're a bunch of authors here, so we're going to talk about a really great book that I read to my kids. Absolutely love this book. This is Feliciana Meets the Loup-garou. And of course this rougarou comes with a side of cuteness. So if you want to see if little Feliciana Phaedra LaRue can outwit the loup-garou, then this is the book for you. It is a fantastic picture book. It is a lot of fun. Feliciana Phaedra LaRue is a character in several children's books, but this one happens to be Feliciana's adventure with the rougarou. So it's a great legend. Feliciana Phaedra LaRue is a cute little spark plug of Cajun cuteness. And absolutely love those books. Read them to my kids, and they are fantastic. Well, one of the things that we have danced around and have not really had to make a commitment on, and I've warned these guys that they were going to have to choose, is our lagniappe question. So what's your Louisiana food last supper? If you find yourself somewhere needing to choose your last supper, I don't know if it's death row, I don't know what you did, don't know how you got there. It's New Orleans. Could be anything. but probably would be allowed if it was in New Orleans. So you must have been somewhere else. So if you were going to have your last supper, somebody asked you, you had to choose a Louisiana food. What do you think it could be? And I did have to add the caveat here. No Sunday brunch is not an answer because it's Sunday brunch in New Orleans. You can get it all. And if you've never been to a New Orleans brunch, y'all out there in Facebook world, YouTube land, you are missing something from your life. Like
Right.
You go in the morning, you start with the breakfast, you have your coffee with chicory, you move to brunchish food and great seafood omelets and cool stuff with your mimosas, your Bloody Marys, and you work your way into lunch food. And basically at 2:00, you roll yourself out of there because now you're as wide as you were tall when you showed up. So it is fantastic. And I would love to say that, yes, you can go have it all at a Sunday brunch, but that's cheating. So what?
You're not allowed to say Dookie Chase's buffet either, right?
No, because you're going to get in so much trouble. Then all the Willie's people are going to come out of the woodwork and go, no, get your
No, but
chicken.
they don't have a buffet. And Dookie
No, they
Chase
don't.
has a buffet.
Dookies has a buffet, but if we're going to talk, Laura started war. For those of you who don't know, Laura started a war on her Facebook page when she asked about the best place to get chicken.
I didn't ask. It was somebody else, and I saw that they had started a war, so I just observed. Here's how you start a war in New Orleans. I didn't know they were going to move the war to my page. So,
There's multiple battlegrounds for this.
yes, the
section.
Battle of Cayouette is occurring now. So
Exactly.
I'm trying to take Cayouette Hill.
Yes. So don't start that battle. So I'm not going to make you choose a restaurant. I will let you choose a dish, unless it is something that then is specific to a restaurant, and then you can give them a shout out and hopefully not start your own battle. So what do you think? What food would be your death row or your last supper if it was a Louisiana dish? What do you think you couldn't live without or couldn't die?
Starting with RJ Lee again. Are we doing the Brady Bunch squares?
We can do that. RJ, I'm going to put you on the spot then. You go first.
It's a dish at okay, I'm naming a restaurant. I shouldn't
Galatois?
Galatois.
Trout marjorie.
Ooh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Okay.
Now, let me just say one thing about it, even though it's one of my favorites. And my parents would eat there every week, and they had their own waiter and all that kind of stuff. So the thing that got me, yeah, and the thing that got me though was, as much as I like Galatois, I was working for Little Brown for a couple of years out of college as a manuscript scout, and I took these two professors who had written this economic text to Galatois, because we were in New Orleans, of course, for a convention, a sales meeting. And I recommended Trout Marjorie, and one of them just totally, I had to bite my tongue. He totally insulted me and said, "What gelatinous mess is this?" And he didn't get it. He did not get it. I just never understood that. But I always expect people to be at least gracious if they don't like something, because you are gracious if you brought up in the Deep South, you know.
Yes, you are.
But anyway, that's my contribution, Trout Marjorie.
Trout Marjorie. All right, Samantha, what do you think?
Mine's pretty easy, I think, because I don't eat fried food a lot, but I love fried shrimp. So I would say fried shrimp in any form, even a po' boy. I'll take it.
Well, now, what people don't understand about Louisiana fried shrimp is it is different than, it is the lightest, crispiest batter you're going to find anywhere. And the shrimp coming in off the Gulf, literally being taken from a truck from the shrimp boat in an ice chest to be scooped into a bucket with a scale hanging off the back of the truck and then given to the restaurant. There is no fresher shrimp. It is unbelievably fresh, and it's got this like sweetness to it. I'm sorry, but once you take that shrimp further away from Louisiana, I swear to you, it does not taste the same anymore. And there is something special about the shrimp. So you can think, well, fried shrimp. That's like, we can get fried shrimp anywhere. It is. It's definitely sweeter. Yeah. And my daughter said we were eating at Muriel's, and she had grilled shrimp, and she's like, "There's something different about this." It had just a dusting of seasoning on it. But she even said, it's like it's sweet. And my mom said, maybe they put some sugar in that dusting, but that doesn't sound Louisiana.
No,
And I tasted it and I said, it's the meat.
Oysters are sweeter. Shrimp is sweeter. Yeah. It's
Everything
our
has
water.
that touch of sweetness. It is. I think honestly, it's the water. I think you're exactly right. So Samantha, I'm gonna definitely agree with you that that fried shrimp in South Louisiana is a special, special thing. And you put it on some Leidenheimer's French bread. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. We don't get French bread like that up here. We just don't. My children never understood what I meant about the crackle of French bread. Like good French bread crackles and it deflates. Like as you bite into it, because it's like, it looks like it's so much bread, and then you bite into it and it's gone.
right.
You know, it's like whoosh, it's, all the air goes out of it. They never understood the crackle of the French bread. And
Big
then
air bubbles. Yeah.
yes, I mean, it is absolutely, you know, that old like crackle paint back in the 90s, you paint furniture and it crackles. Like that's what it should do when you touch it. It's crackle like that.
No, I have to say you dropped Muriel's name. I think their bread pudding is special. They have a totally different bread pudding than anywhere else in the city, and it's very special.
It's very good. Now, another bread pudding you have to try one day, those of you who are down there and local, you've got to go up to Ormond Plantation. Ormond Plantation does lunch on the weekdays. And I mean, it's bed and breakfast. They've got this fantastic restaurant. They make a white chocolate bread pudding out of the French bread that they serve. And it's to die for. It is absolutely like I go to Ormond for the bread pudding.
Yeah.
I mean, I get their catfish with the Meunier sauce, and it is really, really good. But I go for the bread pudding. But you're right, I had Muriel's bread pudding, and it is
Yeah, and it's totally different because
stellar.
caramelized
It is.
sugar. Yeah.
Yes, I mean it is totally different. It looks totally. I
No,
mean, it
like,
is its own unique thing. Own unique thing. It is spectacular. But I will put it side by side with Ormond's bread pudding too. Totally different, very different bread puddings. But bread pudding is one of my favorite desserts of all time. But you put that French bread in a bread pudding, ooh, honey. All right, I'm getting hungry talking about this. Now, the food lady down here, our food blogger, our resident kid in the kitchens. Come on, Tracey. You're like picking children here.
Yeah, no, mine is easy. A great big sloppy roast beef poor boy dressed.
Yes.
All the gravy and 20 napkins.
Yep. Gotta have that. There's some restaurant down there that actually says on their menu, is it Acme Oyster House? One of them has a 10 napkin roast beef po' boy. Like that's what it says on the menu. 10 napkin roast beef po' boy. I was like, oh, that's about right. Those are good. And if anybody ever sees a debris po' boy on a menu, you gotta try that too. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. It's not like the stuff off the floor. Like it's the stuff off the grill that's got all the good flavor in it. So good. That's a Louisiana thing, is the debris po' boy too. Excellent choices
Also,
so far.
cochon de lait. If you're gonna throw po' boys around, you can't skip the cochon de lait.
No, gotta have the cochon de lait. That y'all, the food in New Orleans.
I don't even like sandwiches, but I will eat a cochon. Every year at French Quarter Fest, they open that booth for Love at First Bite, and I will go and get 2 in one day, and then go the next day and get another one, and go the next because they're only going to be there 4 days, so I will go and get one like ongoingly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
and
for
I don't
you,
even like sandwiches, but
I know I'm not a sandwich person either, but I will put down a po' boy. I'll just stand back. Give me a po' boy or a quarter muffaletta from Central, and I'm good. like Central Grocery, and go get that muffaletta. Those are like the only sandwiches I will really look forward to. Is a good Louisiana po' boy or a Louisiana muffaletta. One of those two things. But cochon de lait, for those of you who don't know, cochon de lait is a pig roast. Like it's like a big party, you know, slow roasting. It's so good. So,
but
yes.
the delay is the coleslaw. There's a coleslaw, you know, with a milk cream and whatever. That I don't know why it's so good. I mean, why we eat so much sugared meat, and then there's a milk meat, and we're still like, yeah, that's what I want. But
all that. We want all that. Give us all this stuff. And that's the thing about Louisiana food, is it's a lot of unexpected things together, and yet it all works really well. And that's what makes it special. So many creative chefs down there. Amanda, what do you think if you had to choose something?
Tracey, we got the sandwich. Okay.
So you got Tracy's roast beef.
All this talk is making me so hungry.
I know.
So I've only lived in landlocked places, mind you. So when I went to New Orleans for the first time, I tried charboiled oysters with butter, and I love that. I think that would be on there for sure.
Oh, yes. And there's some really good places down there to get that. I mean, there's a list, like the top. Everybody says they are the top place to go get the charbroiled oysters.
Yeah, but if you go to Oyster Fest, that's the best way to find out for yourself. Any food festival, the plates of food are between $5 and $10, and you can try every restaurant in the city.
Oh, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. So Oyster Fest has, everybody from Acme to Deanie's to, it's all the different oyster houses, and they have every preparation you can possibly think of.
Grilled, fried, raw, everything, charbroiled. I mean, that Rockefeller. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
You're going to get it all.
So good. No, and ones we wouldn't be thinking of, ones that are, like now
Absolutely.
there's newer techniques like molecular gastronomy and whatever. So there's people trying other things. And it's just, I'm not a huge oyster fan, but I never miss Oyster Fest.
Any festival in New Orleans is
I don't miss any of the food
too.
festivals.
I mean, it's absolutely, you will find something you will like.
No.
Yeah.
Speaking of brunches, my favorite is Commander's. What's yours?
My favorite, actually, I think is at the Royal Sonesta.
Is that right?
Royal Sonesta Hotel has a phenomenal brunch. I mean, back years ago when we would go down there for brunch, the Royal Sonesta had.
Y'all had the one at the country club, the one at the golf course?
Yes,
I
I
had
have.
that one.
That's a good one.
Is it? I
Yeah.
have not been to that one. The Royal Sonesta
two
is
rooms
good.
with
Commander is also. Commander's is
awesome.
fantastic. Anything at Commander's, you can't go wrong. Commander's Palace, yum. Gotta love it. All right, so Laura, don't start a war now.
No, I honestly have a terrible answer because I can't do this game. And so my answer is going to be that since I was a baby, my favorite food is crabs, and that's just the way it is. So crabs, I'm going to say crabs. I like a boiled crab. And if I had to say something that I would get at a restaurant, because I don't get boiled crabs at a restaurant.
You do this yourself.
No. And when I see restaurants that are selling boiled crabs, I'm like, who are these people in fully dressed in nice clothing going into this place?
It's going to be all over you by the time you're done.
Only restaurants I ever really ate crabs at had a hole in the middle of the table for you to put the trash in. So, yeah, I'd rather go to a dive bar kind of place for crabs. But I will say that if I'm at Commander's and it's soft shell crab season, I'm not going to miss that either.
I was going to ask you if you like soft shell as much as I do.
I don't always, but I mostly always do. Again,
some places do it.
Yeah,
some people do it better than others.
There's a seafood place near here called Salvo's. You have to cross the river to get there, but Salvo's has all you can eat specials every day of seafood, and it's fresh out the water, whatever they have that day. And so, like, some days they'll have like crawfish and crab and crab legs, and those will be your three things, and that'll cost like $35 for all you can eat. And then another day you have crawfish, and so you pay $20 for all you can eat, or and then another day they'll have whatever. But they have usually 2 or 3 different seafoods available, and you pay this fixed price, and you get all you can eat of the seafood. And of course, for us, that also means corn on the cob and onion and garlic and whatever, But for me, the corn on the cob, I know that we were earlier talking about how spicy isn't always hot, but you should be.
Oh my God!
Well, if you don't already know, water that you boil vegetables in, if it has spices in it, your vegetables are going to be piping hot.
Yes, they are.
And I have lost my ability to detect cayenne long ago, so I won't even know. I could have steam coming out of my ears and just be like, So yes,
my brother does boil crab
and all that, a big old boil or soft shell at Commander's.
Love it.
So,
Absolutely.
but I can't believe y'all are leaving out the side dishes too. I mean, to me, it's all about the sides. I mean, the proteins are all right, but like our green beans are better than any green beans. And greens, just stuff cut out your yard and put in a pot. It's just so good. And desserts, I mean, golly, does anybody do desserts the way we do desserts?
Oh my God. Best bread puddings, best creme brulees. I don't know what they do differently in a creme brulee
Well,
down there, but it's like nowhere else.
We just had a snowball today, and that's just flavored ice. And I can tell you, other people think they know what we're eating when we say snowball, and they have no idea what we're putting in our mouth. They think that's like a snow cone or an icy or a slushy or a Slurpee or a whatever thing. None of those different. Yeah.
Now we have a little truck up here. It's actually some people who were displaced from New Orleans after Katrina. And they came up here and they have this little trailer thing. They have a few of them now. And it's called Chapatula Snowballs. And they're from New Orleans and they have a New Orleans snowball. Like they make the snowballs.
They probably get their machine from Snow Whiz.
They do. They've got all of the stuff that they brought up. And they had a snowball stand down in New Orleans. And so when they got displaced, they brought it all up here. And I tell you what, the day I found them was like angels choir singing. It was like, oh my God, this is the best thing. I'm telling you, that's one of the best treats in the world. Everybody else around here is going, oh, I want to go to Sonic and get a drink with the Sonic ice and all this stuff. And I'm going, well, y'all, you're across the street from the best thing ever. Leave Sonic over there. You can get that anytime. No, come over here and get yourself a snowball. They do them stuffed. They do them with the condensed milk on top. They got a chocolate one. I mean, they do it. It's everything. Wedding cake, tiger split, the whole thing. And I love it.
They even have sugar free. And they even, for children who are on their way to church, they have color free.
That's the best. Right there is a color free.
Yes. So you can get some flavors with no dye.
You don't get it all down your pretty white Sunday.
Well, when we were doing Django, Leo DiCaprio got turned on to the whole snowball thing. And he fell in love with, he made a mixture of 3 flavors. And he would have one delivered to him every day. His one of his friends, he has like 3 friends since elementary school that are his staff. And so he would send this guy to go get a snowball every single day. And it had 3 flavors, and one of the flavors was blue. And
oh no.
And so
Giant's milk.
Yes, we're shooting in, it's supposed to be the 1800s, and he would have this blue tongue. I'd be like, Leo. It's not working.
You need a dye-free blue flavor.
Well, luckily, that's not the right word for this next part, but luckily he had to put that blackout stuff on his teeth because he was a smoker in the movie. So he had to put that black stuff on his teeth. So ultimately it didn't, I don't think you can see blue, but if you look real hard, I'll bet you can see blue.
All right, so we're all going to go watch Django Unchained. We're going to go watch it because we want to see Laura, and then we want to watch for Leo's blue tongue.
Daily blue tongue.
That is hilarious. I mean, these are the behind-the-scenes things you don't get, people. The snowball blue tongue. So I have to say mine, and then I have a reason for mine, because you can get it lots of places, but mine would have to be boiled crawfish. And here's why. It's not because it's necessarily my favorite dish. Now, there are a lot of things I absolutely love in South Louisiana. There are some places that I don't go down there and miss. Like I will go eat this. There's a fabulous pasta dish at Cafe Pontalba that I love. And I love to watch the sunset on the cathedral from their window. It is absolutely beautiful. It's the experience. I love to go get breakfast at Cafe Maspero and sit there and watch the birds fly around and hop around my chair while I am eating their Bayou Benedict. Love it. Their biscuits are amazing.
Our Benedicts. Oh my God, our Benedicts.
Oh my God. And it's a biscuit with a crawfish cake and poached egg and crawfish sauce. It's so good. And their cheese grits and their chicory coffee to die for. That's how you wake up in the morning. However, I'm going to say boiled crawfish for a last meal. And here's why. Because crawfish has a season. And so if I say that I want my death row meal to be boiled crawfish, then if they have to give that to me, it might keep me alive a little longer.
Oh, I can eat crab until
crab
till the COVID thing's over. I can eat crab for hours and hours. I have proven that.
Yeah, I can put down some crawfish. I love crawfish. And my sister-in-law, after we do a big crawfish boil, because my brother and sister-in-law, they've come up here. We all live in this area. And they will get crawfish from Louisiana. In fact, we're doing it on the 3rd. We're doing it right before Easter. We're going to have we always do a big annual crawfish boil up here. My brother can make some mean crawfish. You want to talk about corn that will take, literally burn your lips off. His corn is so spicy, so good. But we have our boiled crawfish. And I thought, if it only has this season, and I asked for it for a last meal, and say I got arrested in like September, or they sentenced me to die in September, they would have to wait a few months before I could have this meal. And I mean, I know the legal system doesn't work that way, but in my mind, this is how
You
I
need to plan your crime carefully. Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to plan my sentencing carefully. Going to do a lot of appeals and delays.
Yeah. Add Ponchatoula strawberries, because then that's another thing that only is. Yeah.
That's it. Then I have my boiled crawfish and my Ponchatoula strawberry shortcake. I don't die until spring.
Which, by the way, Commander's also makes an amazing one of. So does Adelaide.
There you go. So that is how I have decided my last meal should go. I have a plan. It's not necessarily, I mean, I love crawfish. Like I said, I will eat crawfish until the cows come home. I love it. And my sister-in-law will sit and peel whatever is left over, and she makes this amazing crawfish cheesy spinach dip. Oh God, it's so good. And so we always have the extra crawfish for that. We always divvy it up and take it home and freeze it for whatever we're doing. My daughter puts the crawfish in her scrambled eggs. Like this is how we live here. We're the only weird people in Nashville doing that, but that's what we do. But I figure it's the season that's important. Yeah, we do. You sit down with your crystal hot sauce, pour it on your eggs and your crawfish. That's what you eat in the morning. But yeah, I mean, I can't tell you, I probably had seafood for breakfast every day that I was in this city this past week, because it's so good and you can't get it anywhere else. But yes, my seasonal foods are my plan, my diabolical plan. Maybe by then I can get a pardon and I will walk free having had my crawfish. All right. This has been so much fun. Speaking of books that are set in Louisiana, these are mine. This is Crescent City Moon and Crescent City Sin. And for those of you familiar with the city, especially you, Laura, you've probably walked past this place a bazillion times. These pictures on the cover were taken in Lafayette Cemetery, down there, kind of catty corner from the Commander's Palace. So there you go, a couple of tombs there in Lafayette Cemetery in the Garden District. So Crescent City Moon and Crescent City Sin, take a walk on the dark side of New Orleans with me. And if you want to take a walk for just a second, we're going to watch the trailer for Crescent City Moon. There you go. There's some intensity for you. There's the dark side of New Orleans. Right there on the pages of Crescent City Sin. It's really dark, so brace yourselves. If Crescent City Moon frightened you, turn the lights on for Crescent City Sin. That's all I got to say. And if you want some other great books and great reads, of course, check out some of the books from our authors. It's just a sampling of all of the wonderful books that they have available. And I did not have yours, Tracey. I didn't have the covers of your books, but Big Easy Cook is the blog to check out for some great food and some precious kids helping out in the kitchen. So do a little cooking and cook some of these fabulous things we've been talking about with Tracey over there on her blog as well. So we've got some great books for you guys. Check them out. I always say, read some reviews and check them out and leave your reviews on Amazon, but support your local bookshops, including Garden District Books, where you can find Laura's books there as well. Love those folks down there, and their Facebook page. If you guys are actually following them on Facebook, they do a happy hour that is a lot of fun, where you're going to get to meet some authors and hear some great stuff behind the scenes with some of those great writers. So check out Raina and Garden District Books when you're there. They've opened up. They have it was like tiny when I was there last time, and I just got to kind of see the.
Did you see the new kids' room? That's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely adorable. They've got a great space down there. And it's in the Garden District. If you take the streetcar, get off at Washington, and walk about a block down, and you're going to find
not just next to your cemetery, but for all the people we've now made hungry, there you'll also be right next door to Commander's.
Right to Commander's. You can go get some good food, get a good book, and go walk around. Well, the cemetery is still in. Are they renovating? There's renovating Lafayette still, aren't they? Has it opened back up?
Renovating.
I didn't get down there. They're renovating.
Well, they closed it at the beginning of COVID, and it's been closed the entire time. And I've seen less renovating and more just respecting COVID. So.
Well, it is a beautiful cemetery. It is one of my favorites to walk around in. At the time when I was down there before, it was also one of the few that you can get to accessibly and not have to pay a tour to go get into. St. Louis Cemetery #1, the back of the quarter, is always a great, interesting place to go, especially if you want to go see, Nick Cage's pyramid. Always a fun story about Nick Cage and his pyramid and there, but some great, interesting people are buried in St. Louis Cemetery #1, but you do need a tour to get into that one. But Lafayette, when it reopens, it's a great one just to go stroll around. Some neat tombs to explore, great history, and they're just beautiful. They're just stunning. I mean, it's a beautiful, quiet place to go wander. And if you don't know about why we bury the way that we bury in New Orleans and the stories behind those tombs and how they work, there's some interesting information you need to find out about that. There is a scene in Crescent City Moon that takes place in one of the cemeteries down there, and there's a little bit of an explanation there, hopefully enough to wet your whistle a little bit to find out a little bit more, because that story in itself is quite fascinating. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. All of my authors who are here tonight, I appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun. We could talk New Orleans all night long. Y'all know how much I love the city. And it is a huge part of who I am, who I was growing up, who I am as an author and a writer. And the stories the city can tell is just phenomenal. So anybody who gets a chance to go down there, let me know. And I will steer you to some places. And if there are some things you want to do that I don't know what to do, here's some people who can tell you. They can tell you what to do too. So hit us up. We will be your virtual tour guides to a city that means so much to all of us. And if you didn't get a chance to watch this from the very beginning, please go check out Nola Nash Entertainment. You can watch this on a replay, as well as this is episode 25 of the series of episodes that we have done, the Second Line show. So you can watch all of them from the beginning, as well as some unnumbered special events that we have done since we started this show at the beginning of COVID. So we've had a great time getting to know some great authors along the way. So check out Nola Nash Entertainment, where the Second Line show past episodes happen to live. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for all of you that have joined us in the comments. Anybody watching on a replay, thank you so much for hanging out with us. It sure has been a lot of fun. Now we're all hungry and my wine glass is empty. So I've got several problems happening here.
Well, I have jambalaya though. So.
Oh, I've got some in my freezer. Maybe I need to thaw that out. Okay, Laura's set. So we're gonna let her go.
I already got my snowball today. So
she's already doing better than me. This is not okay. I ate more than I needed to when I was down there last week. I could probably stand to miss a meal or two now. All right, you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you all so much for joining us. This has been truly a pleasure. Tracey, I'm going to be checking out your blog and getting some recipes off of that, because now I am truly homesick, food sick, really wanting to go get some of those recipes so I can bring some of those great dishes that I was eating last week back to my own kitchen, because I'm sorry, but now I'm really hungry for the good stuff. I want the good stuff, food with lots of flavor. All right, you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for leaving your comments, your questions, and we appreciate you hanging out. So y'all have a great night and join us next week.